the road. Good evening or afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. Um, we have a quorum and all alternates can vote. There we go. Um, First of all, I'd like to introduce a new staff member, Matt Felthausen. Felthausen. Um, Tom has gotten promoted. He's now in charge of all the video. I told him all control delete always works when you're having an IT issue. So anyway, so he's back there, and so a little changing around, and so all's good. So first of all, let me read off this statement I'm supposed to read, but I don't always do. The primary objective of the CAC is to ensure capital maintenance and public transportation projects and programs approved by the PPRTA voters at November 2nd, 2004, November 6th, 2012, and November 7th, 2017, and November 8th, 2022 ballot measures are accomplished with PPRTA fund. This committee reports directly to the board of directors. All right. So do I have a motion for approval of the agenda? Okay, Rich and Karen. Okay. All right. And a second, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all for being online. Those that are online. All right, public comment for items not on the agenda. Anyone in the room have any public comment?
I actually did have a friend who was trying to make it today, but he's been having to take the bus recently and is kind of concerned about upkeep of bus stops. Wondering what is going on with that, if there is a lot taking place to upgrade and give lighting, especially to bus stops.
Maybe Lan can address that during her thing. That would work. Okay, thank you, Tony. Any further comments? Anybody online? Okay, very good. Approval of the minutes from the February 4th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Larry Tobias, move to approve.
Second. Barb? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, one's approved. Thank you. Monthly financial reports. Lisa?
All right, Lisa Corey, Finance Manager for the PPRTA. For the month of December, we received $14,857,617, which is above the monthly amended budget by $1,227,345, or 9%. Overall, the year-to-date is above the annual budget by $8,316,540. December 25 revenues were above December 24 by $638,755, or 4.5%. And for the year as a whole, we received 1.2% more in 25 than we did in 24.
Okay, good report. Let's keep that trend going. Right? Build up that cash. Any questions for Lisa on the financial report? Anybody online? All right, thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, item number 6, capital maintenance and improvement, City of Colorado Springs. Ms. Scales.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Citizens Advisory Committee. The city is bringing 7 contracts for your consideration today. The first one is for the Circle Drive Bridge Replacement Project. This is an RTA2 A-list capital project. There's a map in your back. This is to update or get approval to pay the fee for the licensing fee for BNSF to have conduits crossing the rail lines. We had an initial estimate for this particular one. It was $7,400, so you didn't see it initially. But when they went back and recalculated as they counted all the conduits, it is actually $57,000. So I'm bringing that forward to get approval to make that payment.
Is it going under the tracks?
No, it's going over the tracks. Sorry, I had to think about that. city's second contract is for another RTA to A-list project. It's the Galley Road or West Fork of Sand Creek Bridge Replacement Project. Once again, there's a map included in your packet to show where that's located. As I think many of you are aware, this project's been going on for some time, and we have a couple items where we have cost escalation that we have actually seen in the amount of about $8,000. We have some other items as we get through closing out and completing this project that we anticipate and be requested cost escalation considerations. There are provisions in the construction contract to do so. Based on our estimate, we're asking for your approval for a not to exceed value of $35,127 to be able to handle those items.
Dale,
Yes, sir.
I heard saw something on the news. Is it utilities that's starting a project just down the street
Yes.
from that's gonna keep it locked up for another period of time?
That is correct. I will tell you, we do have a bridge maintenance project also in the area that's going to be starting at on Wooten, just north of Galley. But we've been coordinating the traffic control with them to make sure we're keeping lanes open through that area as well through that work.
Or that's total utilities though.
The thing that just started on Monday, yes, that was a utilities thing.
Thank you.
All right, the city's third contract is for the US 24 functionality and routing study. This is a project that's being done in, with the Woodman Road project. They are both PPRTA 3 A-list projects. In January, when I brought the contract forward for the engineering services, I showed that this particular aspect of it, the US 24 functionality and routing study, was going to be getting federal funding. So what the PPRTA approval amount in January only was for what would be local match. As it turns out, that particular aspect of the project is not eligible for the federal funding. So I'm bringing this back for just to really show the cost change. So the entire $64,907.36 is going to be allocated towards PPRTA. And let me back up and maybe restate that that's the increase or the change of what we thought was going to be the federal grant. So asking for reapproval. So the net will be the same for the overall contract. It's just which accounts things would be paid for. The city's fourth contract, this is one you guys might be really interested in. This is for what we're referring to as an alternate treatment site. And when we go through and do these, excuse me, these transportation projects, anytime we disturb more than an acre of earth, we have to go through and do provide water quality, essentially for all the stormwater impacts. When we do our transportation projects, most often we can easily get about 75% within the site itself or within the project limits, but we frequently struggle to come up and meet the last 25% of our requirements. So we end up doing things like putting hydrodynamic separators, which is a fancy vortex type inlet that requires a lot of individual maintenance for clean out and things along that line. So we've been looking for a smarter way to do this. Sorry, I'm going to grab some water. It's in my voice for some reason. So we've been looking for a way to do this smarter. That would be overall more beneficial for the community, and we were curious if it would be more economical for us. So as it turns out, we have identified a piece of property. It sits on the northwest corner of Woodman Road and Austin Bluff. There's a map in your packet to really show where that is. And we've had some analysis done on it, and we know we can get a significant amount of water quality that can be used for transportation projects, which is in that same hydraulic basin for at least 6 different PPRTA 3 A-list projects. And we're actually already started working on identifying there's probably at least 2 more. So I've got the 6 primary ones on Nevada Avenue and 30th Street and Old Ranch Road already in the memo. And then I've got it listed, anything else that could be eligible, if there's still additional capacity for us in that same hydraulic basin, we could use this to help us achieve our water quality volumes. I will tell you also from the analysis, our capital investment savings is going to be over $800,000 upfront. And then our maintenance savings over time, which just is going to be more efficient for our crews to be able to go and maintain this and provide a better water quality solution overall for our community. So to purchase this property, it's the asking was for sale. We did do an independent appraisal in accordance with the city's real estate manual. The price is $1,380,000. I have already been to city council once. It will be on the consent agenda on Tuesday. So I'm asking for the CAC's recommendation for approval. And we would know the outcome, the final outcome before we go to the board next week. Any other questions about that one? I had to give a lot of explanation. Yes.
Gail, great overview. Help me understand this then. I know that there are some similar concepts in wetland banking. I don't know, is this essentially a stormwater quality bank?
It's 100% what it is, but we're using RTA monies. Our intent is to use it for at least these 6 and probably at least 8 of the RTA 3 projects. I will tell you there's one corner on the edge of the property that's already a social trail that connects 2 pieces of the Cottonwood Creek Trail. So we'll work with the Parks Department to be able to, when we go through and build the water quality basin, to formalize that. And also an ancillary benefit that the larger basin that sits up to the north side of this actually is going to benefit for this water quality as well. So it's an overall great project for our community. And yes, it creates essentially a water quality bank with our intent to use it for RTA 3.
So you aren't planning to move water from South Nevada way up north into the bank, obviously.
So
Help me with the
we're
math.
not moving the water, right? It's all in the same hydraulic basin or hydraulic unit code, HUC, if you're a stormwater person. But it's essentially the big basin. It will sit up here in the north, and you're right, some of the projects sit further south, but overall you can get the water quality benefit as it goes into Monument and Fountain Creek ultimately in the end.
Tell me again, what's a HUC?
It's a hydraulic unit code.
That's new.
It's a fancy water quality or just basin if you're familiar with drainage.
Like a sub area.
Yes.
Thank you.
So they did a lot of mitigation work on the other side, on the east side of Austin Bluffs when they redid that stream and did some erosion control stuff. We did a whole bunch of mitigation work over there. I'm assuming this is all tied into that.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that particular activity. I do know our stormwater enterprise is actually looking, there's a concrete channel that runs north essentially along Austin Bluff through there that they plan on doing some other work to continue to get water quality credit and benefit. But it's not directly related to this project.
Okay.
So I have a quick comment.
Oh, yeah, so go ahead.
So yeah, I just wanted to commend the city. This is great forward thinking and a really great way to use water quality in a drainage basin. So it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to move on to the city's 5th contract. This is to purchase pin down durable barriers to be able to use on our Safe Streets and Roads for All demonstration projects. We identified 9 locations within the city that were included in our grant to be able to do temporary neighborhood traffic calming using roundabouts, and we'll be using these pin down barriers to be able to do that. We'll be using a combination of PPRTA funds for the local match and then federal funds. So the total amount would be in $500,000 with $200,000 coming from 3 different PPRTA accounts. There is a map in there, and it's actually included in this contract and the next one that show those locations. And those happen to be, I'll show you a picture, but it's very similar to the flexible delineators. That's really what they're called, is these pin down barriers. And I can pull a photo up and show you after the fact. That's what they are. I know some of our crews can, yes, Carl. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Carl.
Yes, thank you. So curious, just a little bit background on how the 9 sites were selected. Were those from Go Coast tickets? And really, I guess the intent behind the question is how the selection process, especially given I've heard that CTAB is going away or has been dissolved. And so just going forward. how-
Yeah, so the city has gone through and done a huge safety action plan. In fact, it's going to be released. This will be in my announcements later, but it's going to be released for public review next, I think it's Tuesday, sometime next week. But even before that, the city did a lot of different safety analysis and gathered data to identify these locations to be able to apply for various different grants. So you can see there's just on this photo, there was at least 5 different mitigation measures they were going to demonstrate. This just happens to be for the 9 neighborhood roundabouts. And then I'll talk about another one, the raised crosswalks. So it's all data driven. Locate to be able to determine the locations that for recommendations and included in our grant application. We cannot change these locations.
Right. And was that based on CDOT crash data or some other data source?
We use CDOT crash data as well. We also, on most of these locations, and Todd, I don't know if is Todd Frisbee online? He was going to try to join us today, but yes, we use CDOT crash data, but we also use other
Just
data
not-
sources. You know, I made sure he had the link before I left because I knew people would ask questions
Yeah.
about this. So
Yeah.
Todd, if you're just joining us, I'm getting asked questions about how we determine the location. So yes, we use CDOT crash data. We also use other data sources. Holistically, we use streetlight data to help us gather information on speed and things like that. But if we identify an area that we think has a safety issue, or it could come in from a complaint, we'll go out and do individual neighborhood studies to collect very specific data on that corridor to determine whether it's a speeding. In this case, I'd imagine these were mostly speeding locations that or had a crash history associated with them, and that's why they were identified. Yes.
And apologies, one more question. Was there any kind of equity as far as like neighborhoods trying to have some representation, or is it totally based on safety concerns?
I would suspect it was mostly based on safety incidents, but I do know when they applied for that grant that equity was a requirement, but I can't tell you exactly how we address that issue.
Gail, if I may.
Todd Frisbee, please jump in.
Yeah,
I would greatly
yes,
appreciate it.
Todd Frisbee, City Traffic Engineer, and Gail did a great job answering the questions. Yes, there is, it was a data-driven process. Also, and Gail also mentioned that a lot of them are in neighborhoods, so they came to us either through a neighborhood complaint and a speed study that we conducted that showed, an issue with speeding. We also tried to put these near parks and as you see, there's a higher concentration sort of in the southeast-ish part of the community. And so there is, you could say there's a bit of an equity component in determining these locations. But this is a culmination of years of sort of just collecting sort of speed data and neighborhood complaints about speeding, and these are all intended to be sort of quick build projects. We're collecting speed data before. We've collected speed data before. We're going to be collecting speed data after, and other traffic volume data just to measure their effectiveness and whether these types of treatments are something that we should include in our toolbox of neighborhood traffic calming options. And so that's really how this kind of came about.
That answer your question, Phil? Brandy's got her hand up. Brandy?
Thanks, Jim. I just had a quick question. The traffic circles you're showing kind of old Colorado City, no man's land. What exact intersections are those going to be?
I can get back to you, but they're all along Pikes Peak Avenue.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's helpful.
And Pikes Peak Avenue, just for context, Pikes Peak Avenue is our bike boulevard corridor. And the intent is to create a corridor with slow vehicle speeds, and to accommodate, to encourage more biking in that corridor.
And I pulled, I'm sorry, Brandy, I pulled the exact locations. They're both on Pikes Peak, but one's at 22nd Street and the other's at 29th Street.
Okay, thank you, Gail.
And then I may have missed it. Is there a timing, or are we still just kind of going through the process to check the boxes and then figure out when timing's going to actually happen?
Yes, I can speak to that. We've already collected before data at all these locations. Our intent is to begin installation in the spring, so April, May-ish kind of timeframe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just another quick question, kind of tying on to Brandy's too. So what is kind of going to be the evaluation period? These kind of almost sound like pilots and.
Yeah, so, right. So typically our pilots, we like to run between 12 and 18 months at a minimum to be able to collect enough comparable data, particularly looking at the vehicle volumes that may be variable depending on the time of year. Sometimes we even run them up to 24 months, again, to collect additional data. So then we'll make a analysis on basically the return on investment to see if it makes sense to be able to go through and see if it actually provides the safety it was intended, the safety features it was intended. And then if it's determined that it is, then we look for ways to program those to make those permanent improvements.
Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, so I apologize. I'm kind of a graphical kind of need to see a picture person, and the map is great. To Brandy's question, it will really be helpful if maybe again, you're buying flexible. I'm still struggling to understand what these are. So these are flexible delineators, and you're going to yank stop signs on select streets and create not roundabouts. These are actual traffic circle obstructions in the center of intersections. Do I have that right? Just failing to see again a graphic of what these are.
Yes, I'm not positive all these locations actually all have four-way stops today. Todd, I don't know if you have a better response on that.
It's a mix of four-way stops and non-four-way stops. So Dave, you are correct. It is we create a little circle in the middle of the intersection with some signage to direct people the right direction around the traffic circle, and they are neighborhood traffic circles, so it's different, fundamentally different than a roundabout. Yes, and we would pull stop signs. It would become a yield condition, just how any traffic circle would work.
And then Todd, I believe, haven't we already installed one or two in Valley High or on Valley High?
No, we have not installed this type of treatment, the traffic circle type of treatment anywhere in the city.
Okay.
So just to be clear, then there'll be no stop signs. The reason I ask is I know the Greenwood Village people, often called the Village people, have installed a number of traffic circles with stop signs, which are really confusing. And my understanding is in fact, it's even been laughable in some traffic engineering circles where it's kind of a contradiction in terms. You don't do stop signs and circles. So just to be certain, then there'll be no stop signs with these circles, right? You're creating arguably hazards.
That's correct. The MUTCD convention and standard would say that you don't mix contradictory traffic control types of traffic circles to yield. You would remove the stop signs and put yield signs up.
And then, so Todd, in addition to putting the yield signs, are we going to be applying chevrons at this time, or waiting to see if it's a permanent installation?
That's a good. I need to get back to. I'll get back to you on that. But we are installing the full package of signage. We have an individual design for each one of these, and I don't remember if we were including the markings, because that comes a little more problematic
Right.
in terms of
Particularly
removal.
with the demo, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
So people don't stop at four-way stops. This is going to be fun to watch. I wish you'd film this so that we can laugh at it on Saturday Night Live or something, because they don't stop at four-way stops and go through the intersections in some of these residential areas anyway. I'm just curious how these flexible barriers are going to slow things down.
If you want a real treat, go drive Orchard Road east of I-25, about a mile east or two.
Yeah.
You'll see circles, stop signs, roundabouts. It's just a mess. So as long as we aren't doing that intentionally, I'm all for this. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions for again on that project?
Because we're going to talk about another one in contract number 6. So, so this is also another demonstration project covered under our Safe Streets and Roads for All locations, or sorry, Safe Streets for All grant to do demonstration projects. They happen to be 7 locations. They are represented by the yellow dots on your map, where we'll be installing. They're basically a temporary speed table to be able to slow folks down. So like a speed hump. So instead of going and doing a permanent installation, this would be temporary to see if they actually have the desired effect to slow traffic down. We have done a couple of these on, well, at least one on Holly Street, which is also a raised crosswalk in this area. Todd, maybe you can speak to this. If these are just speed humps, or are they speed humps and raised crosswalks?
Oh, they are speed humps, because they can't be raised crosswalks because we can't make them ADA compliant because of the
Okay.
grades down and up. So they will be essentially a temporary speed hump pin, it's a rubberized material pin, it's pinned down. The city had used these, when I was told, 15 to 20 years ago. But yeah, Scale said there's 7 locations, and again, they're essentially, I would characterize them as a neighborhood speed hump.
Yes.
I have a follow-up question for Todd, if I may, on the ADA part. I mean, so by definition, a raised crosswalk doesn't change the grade from the sidewalk. And so trying to understand the ADA concern that you mentioned previously.
Well, in a raised crosswalk, you bring that platform, the walk part, all the way up out to the top of the curb, or you bring it down. You can tie it into, or you have the ramp that comes down, and then you can form the concrete to make sure that the slope meets compliance for the raised as you get up to the raised part. The problem with these pin downs is that the end parts are the angle is too steep. So when you sort of, you would when you come down a ramp and then you hit that pan, but it's too steep to get back up to the platform of the speed hump. So that's why we're positioning them in locations where we'll operate them as a speed hump. If the permanent installation in some of these areas would be come back in and put a raised crosswalk at that near that location.
Yeah, they had some of these on my street back years ago, and they're not flat on top. They're just kind of rounded. So it would be very awkward for someone. There's no flat surface on the top for somebody to walk across or go across, if I remember right.
Yeah. The main thing is you just can't make them ADA compliant, and so we're treating them as a speed hump in our evaluation.
And Todd, again, that the intent is to slow traffic down in areas where we have speeding or a history of excessive speeding.
Yes, a lot of these locations are for area where we have speeding, but they're also near public places like parks. So we have one over by Panorama Park, and a few others near other parks. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that was the intent, was to try to get it.
And then 3 of them are by schools.
Yeah, I think yeah. So we're trying to put these locations where we have a demand for people to cross the street.
Yes, Carl.
Carl?
Just one more comment. I just want to commend the city for bringing this project forward. I know like the hawk signals, the school zones that have been put in are a huge improvement in safety for people outside of cars. And so Greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Any other questions on contract 6? I'll move on to 7. All right. So contract 7 is for us to put an engineering services in place to perform inspections for the city's minor bridges. We have 233 of them. For other structures, retaining walls on the right of way, we have we're going to have inspections done on 140 of the 567 we own. And then we are also working with the Parks Department to have inspections done on their 104 bridges. So if you're familiar with your major bridges or bridge structures, there's actually a federal program that goes to the state where those get inspected every 2 years. The city has added in over the last dozen of years to have our minor structures inspected every 4 years to do condition assessments to be able to understand where they are. And then we use that data on that asset to be able to build a full asset management program and identify work that goes for maintenance activities, or if it's too far gone, to be able to identify things for replacement activities. So these are the inspection services associated with that. We also started other structures in the right-of-way program, it's, I think 4 years ago now, where we identified criteria and set it up very similar to the way you do your bridge program, that you have a criteria and assign a numerical value to determine essentially the health of your structures. And then once again, with that asset data, we determine what is needed for repair or replacement. And then we do the same thing with the parks bridges. So we just recently completed our on-call engineering services RFP. One of the firms that was identified for this particular work was Basis Partners, and they'll be issued a task order in the amount of $360,594.01. The PPRTA portion of that is $310,869.01. Any questions related to the 7 contracts or additional questions?
Anybody online have any questions for Gail? Additional questions? Okay. I have a motion to approve the city's request and make a recommendation to the board. Tony, thank you. Carl, second. Okay. All right. All those, oh, yes, sir. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Rick.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to bring up, while it's fresh and everybody's just experienced this very detailed and extensive Q&A session, I'd like to bring up the topic of the level of detail that goes into your minutes. For the past several years, Tom has done a superb job of a almost verbatim transcript for your minutes, which takes a lot of his time. Now we have Matt. You just saw where you have at least 10 back and forth Q&As. So my question is, a verbatim transcript on a 10 scale would be a 10. A minimal topic piece in the minutes for something like this would just be Gail presented these 7 contracts. There was a motion that was second and was approved. So that would be a 1 on a 10 scale. Verbatim would be a 10. So my question for you to be thinking about in the coming months is a minimal set of minutes would be 3 to 4 pages. If Matt puts a verbatim or near verbatim back and forth, your minutes are going to be 10, 12, 15 pages. So please be giving some thought in the next several months of how important it is to have all the Q&A or an abbreviated version of the Q&A. An abbreviated option would be the delineators were brought up. Gail answered it, period, rather than a paragraph. Please be thinking about some options. Thanks.
Having done plenty of like court reporter stuff and summarized summary transcripts in the past, I would recommend in the 4 range on that 1 to 10. because it does give enough information.
Yeah, I think something more than one, not quite a 10, somewhere in the middle, that unless it's I would say that would be where I would lean, unless we get into a discussion where there's dissension and that we need to delineate some of the negative in a little more detail, especially if it's a split vote on that kind of thing. But I think in general, we had the discussion, several questions were raised, they were answered, no objections and that kind of thing.
Maybe one final thought there, just looking at this month's minutes, it was 6 pages from last month's. Now, last month was a little bit of a shorter than average meeting, thanks to our great and glorious chair and everyone here. But I think 6 pages is pretty reasonable. I mean, we're spending $15 million a month, aren't we? Give or take. I don't know what the monthly revenues are. I think 6 pages of narrative for $15 million is pretty good value. So I don't see a big problem. I don't want to overdo it or have too much detail, but I think having too few details may be short-circuiting the transparency that we're all trying to achieve. So I'm pretty happy with where we are, maybe with some minor adjustments.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair? Oh, sorry. Oh, Tony?
Are there recordings of these meetings available? If the public wanted to go back and watch the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay, that also lends itself to a summarized minutes, because if they really need to get into the weeds, they can watch us. So,
Yeah, as you've heard me say many times, my goal and stuff is to make sure that we're transparent to the public and that the public sees that we're doing our work, and that's the important thing. And so a summarized meeting is a 1 page long, doesn't answer that question. But yeah. Well, I'm done. Yeah, like,
I'd just like to say also that I think something in the range of, 4 or 5 would be a good compromise without really getting into too much detail, like a 10, but a 1 or a 2 is not enough information given out to in the packets or online. Even though people can hear the whole thing, I think we need to have it presented so that, they can get a general idea of what occurred.
any other questions, comments?
I'll just make a quick comment. I think it, the 4 or 5 is really good. Kind of an outline of what we talked about, unless it's subject, particular, there might be a particular subject where it demands more coverage. But overall, I think 4 or 5 are just a summary. And then be fine.
Okay, all good comments? Ed?
I think based on what I'm hearing, we've already got kind of a consensus. Would it be appropriate to have a motion so that Rick would have something without waiting weeks or months to make this?
Okay with me. Okay, Will.
If that's the case, I would make the motion that we put it kind of in the middle, and that way we don't have to do all the burden that we have for this week.
Any second to that?
second,
Okay,
Can we just amend that and clarify if there is dissension or more engaged discussion, that we want a little bit more detail?
I would like that.
So,
Okay, okay, all right.
And did I miss an agenda where it had this on it? Just curious.
No, it's not on the agenda.
Okay. All right.
It's Rick's discretion. It's his meeting.
All right, as long as everybody.
Thank you for the feedback. We'll give it a try with administrative discretion, and if it's too little or too much when you at the next month's meeting, then you can give us some guidance.
It was an inserted administrative moment. All right,
are we gonna do the vote?
are we gonna vote on it? We have, yeah, you got, a second, Tony, second. Okay, so all those in favor of what we discussed in terms of giving some guidance to Rick and Matt on the minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay.
Well, just me because it wasn't on the agenda, but that's
Yeah.
just because the
This
things
is all
being on the.
agendized. In the interest of transparency, I'd rather have seen it agendized, so I'll vote no. In the interest of transparency.
I'd suggest no voting and administrative discretion and with CAC review and comment, and we can put it as an agenda item for next month.
Okay, that makes sense. Everybody okay with that? Okay, all right, we'll backtrack then, Brandy. If
Thank you.
this discussion didn't have, we'll hit a race. Gail?
Mr. Chair, members of CAC, I do, just for the record, make an administrative clarification for item 7. In your memo, in the contract amounts, the individual numbers are correct and the total bottom line is correct for the $360,594.01. But there is a typo on the amount of PPRTA funds, and it should be $310,879.01. So it's off by $10.
Okay,
Working on it right now.
all right. All right. Good discussion, good comments. We'll switch now to the county. Excuse me, Josh.
Good afternoon, Josh Palmer, County Engineer. County has 2 items to bring before you today. The first is a professional services contract for the design of the Vollmer Road and Burgess Road intersection project. The county went through an RFP process and we received 5 proposals, and Olson was selected as the best value. So we're requesting the CAC make a recommendation to approve a contract in the amount of $765,384.78 for Olson for the design of Vollmer and Burgess Road.
Questions for Josh on this project? Larry?
Hi, Josh, I've got one question. Are you leaning toward any type of particular design, like a roundabout at that particular intersection?
Based on the discussion of traffic circles, I may just throw a couple of those in and call it good. No, I think a roundabout is that was a consideration, and that's what dictated and drove some of the pricing that we received was the complexities around working through the issues with utilities at that corner.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for Josh? Okay.
Our second contract is actually a property acquisition settlement. So for Highway 105B, I believe it's parcels 124. The package includes right-of-way and a couple of temporary easements or permanent easements for utilities. The settlement amount that we're requesting to be approved is $135,000 for the entire package, including the right-of-way and the easements. Will it answer any questions you may have about that request? Oh, I apologize. There are maps for both of these, just to give you a context of the location.
All right, there are no questions for Josh. Okay. Karen's going to recuse herself for the vote on this, but if there are not any further questions, do I have a motion to approve the county's request? All right, thank you. Second, Dave? Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right. Land, transit.
Good afternoon, Land Rail Transit Division Manager for Mountain Metro Transit. Maybe I'll address Tony's question first, and thanks for asking that question first. So I had a few minutes to phone a friend. Anything particular that happened in the last maybe couple weeks, couple months? Nothing in particular other than it's more windy in the last few months, which could cause more trash overflow spreading throughout the city. But in general, this is what we do in terms of trash pickup. We have 984 bus stops throughout the system. We hire a third-party private contractor to maintain bus stops, anything that's broken, the benches and shelters, and making sure they're cleaned, they're repaired, as well as picking up the trash. Normally, we pick up trash once a week, but there are some hot spots that we do pick up more frequently, like the Citadel Mall, we pick up 5 days a week. South Nevada, 3 times a week, but we also take phone calls, complaints if someone reported a location with trash issues. Normally that's then we contact the contractor. Normally that's cleaned up within 2 hours. Also in terms of the lighting, again, I'm not aware of anything particular happening in recently. However, lighting has been a issue that's been on the even the safety committee's mind. So what we have been doing is we actually had quite a few months working with the frontline drivers, asking them to report to us, are there top 10? Maybe we start with the top 10. Where are the stops locations, then we can address those first. So what we got so far are 2 locations. One is Citadel Mall, the other one is the Academy Super Stop at Hancock's. So we did address and put more lighting at both locations. So I would what I would like to do, maybe you can pass on this message to whoever has been reporting to you. If they can reach out to us, if they see something, give us a call. If that's convenient, send an email. Everything's on our website, transitinfo@coloradosprings.gov. Go COS, and there are actually those yellow bars on our website. You can click and file a complaint, or just call us at 385-7433. We also ask our drivers, our security guards, anyone driving around the system, if you see anything, we really appreciate that information. Thank you. In our monthly report, we included the first month's information, ridership information for January 2026. I would like to move the transit highlights section. I just mentioned transit security service. So in September 2025, we transitioned into a new transit security service contract. We outsource our security services to third-party contractors. As part of this new contract, we introduced a new service. Basically, it's a mobile rover patrol response within our system. The contract started in September, but we were able to add 2 mobile positions in January 2026, fully operational. So this is really part of our effort, our continued focus on safety, customer experience, and operational readiness across the transit system. So what the rover patrols could do is they will be able to respond very quickly to incidents, assist maybe emergency situations, and they could also, even if there are no incidents happening, they would maintain this visible security presence at high volume transit locations. So with this new service that we introduced just recently, we're hoping to be more proactive and practice more de-escalation techniques and working with dispatch and emergency services as well as law enforcement very closely. So it is something new. If you see transit security riding the bus or at different locations, that's why. Also, the second, yes.
Are you finished with that?
Yes.
I got a question about that. I was going to ask it a minute ago in bus stop discussion. I've seen homeless people hanging around the stops, and all homeless people aren't necessarily, all homeless people aren't necessarily a threat. But I do know that some of them kind of park and camp out in the back of these things. And my assumption is at night when the bus quits running, they sleep on the bench versus the ground. So I've noticed some of that, but their stuff is still behind it. So will these roving patrols be able to deal with that? Or will that still be a law enforcement issue? Will they just try to de-escalate things, get people to move on, but eventually have to elevate it, or tell them that?
exactly what you said. The roving patrols actually have been helping with camping situations, and normally they could clean the bus stops and make sure it's for passengers only. But if the situation gets escalated, we will call CSPD. The second item we included in our transit highlight section is our final spring service change. I did share all the detailed changes with the CAC last month, and we did receive the final recommendation and approval to move forward with those changes. We opened the public comment period from January 22nd to February the 5th, and we received 248 responses compared to 20 that we used to receive. So out of those responses, the strongest, and we also used a new tool this year for gathering public comment. So the strongest support, the highest percentage we received are actually for the Route 3 changes. One is the going to zero fare and fare reimbursed with partners, with partnership. We received 78% of support on that proposal. We also received 76% support for increasing that Route 3 frequency from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. There are also opponents putting in a lot of comments, whether they are pro or against the recommendations. People did take their time to let us know what they think. So it's a great process. A lot of the positive feedback on these changes on Route 3, I'll just share one here. This writer said, I live right by Route 3 line in Old Colorado City, and the increase in frequency to 15 minutes will greatly improve my quality of life and increases the times that I will take the bus rather than drive, therefore reducing congestion on the road. And the opponents are mostly concerned about higher operating costs, staffing shortages, and potential taxpayer burdens. So those are just some things throughout the comments.
So taxpayer what?
Taxpayer burden. Yeah. So those are some comments, and all the comments and the survey results are still on our website if you're interested in reading them. The final service change will take place on March 29th. And we're very excited about those transit improvements. That's all for my transit report.
Any other questions or comments for Lan? Anybody online? Great job, Lan. Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, Carl.
I just want to commend the Mountain Metro Transit with the security improvements. I've seen the de-escalation techniques firsthand at the downtown bus terminal. They did a really nice job dealing with it and turned into a non-event. So thank you for that.
Thank you for the feedback.
Likewise, somewhat unrelated, and great job. Keep up the fantastic work and all the great trends. Are you in a position to share with this group any updates about a downtown transit center? I know you've been looking at option A, option B. Do you sell off the one you have? Do you move over by Giuseppe's or the depot down there? Anything you can share with us at this point about your process?
We're actively pursuing.
Still.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lan. Item number 7B, Colorado Springs change order monthly acquisition report. It's in your packet. Any questions or anything for Gail on that? Not seeing any online. 7C, Powers Boulevard Extension, summary, Gail.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We, over this last period, accumulated another $138,202 and PPRTA responsible charges. That brings the total to just over $20.3 million on what would be eligible for reimbursement to Copper Ridge Metro District for Powers Boulevard. Related to that, on last Monday, they started the water line relocation work at Flying Horse Club Drive to start in preparation to do the local bridge installation. The Copper Ridge Metro District also went through an IFB process where they received 4 bids, and they have the apparent low bidder is Kramer Construction, and so they will be doing the construction on the local bridges here in the near future. So it is moving along. We are actively engaged in doing the NEPA reevaluation and to include the noise analysis. I know Mr. Godfrey was able to attend our town hall, and we're working to finalize the engineering fee to keep mainline design moving along as well. Lots of other traffic related things going on because we still do need to go through CDOT and the Transportation Commission to get approval to tie into the state highway on both ends. That's just an overview plus an update on where we are in cost reimbursement. A lot of things are starting to happen on that project. Finally, last page. I've been working on it for 26 years.
Any comments or questions for Gail? All right, Larry.
Question on your page here on your invoice dates. Why are the invoice dates not in chronological order? You've got them mixed up between 25 and 26 throughout this list of.
So if you saw the entire reimbursement package, it would make a lot more sense because a lot of these individual pieces of work that are being done by different consultants under task orders, they get invoices for each of these task orders, right? So like the first 2, for example, are for one activity, and the next 2 or 3 are for the next activity, even though they're both being done by Felsberg, Colton, Olivig, or FHU. So if you saw the whole packet, it would make more sense. And I apologize, may not make sense for you, but I send PPRTA and the county and the Metro District to sign approval where we review every invoice that comes in to make sure it's an allowable charge and make sure we can agree that the work's been performed. And so if you had the bigger packet, you could see that it makes more sense.
Whatever you say.
Good.
I could send you the packet. You could be my reviewer if you'd like.
All right, item 7D, El Paso County change order monthly acquisition. Josh? Any questions for Josh? Not seeing any online. Thank you. Good report. El Paso County Road Preservation presentation.
Come up here for this one. I'm Josh Palmer, county engineer. Every year, January or February-ish, Public Works gives a presentation to our Board of County Commissioners on our plans for upcoming paving and preservation. And we gave one in February, well, I guess it was January this year. And it was recommended at last month's board meeting by Commissioner Nelson that the county give the same presentation to the CAC and the board. And Rick and I decided that we'll do it this month. I apologize. The presentation that I sent Rick was a previous version, so the PowerPoint that you have in your packet is not wrong, but it's not as good of a presentation as the one that I will give now that I sent Jared once I got here and actually looked at the packet. So this is the presentation that was given to the board, both during the informal and then the regular board meeting where they approved our plan and our budget. Oh, what did I do? Just so bit of background information on the volume of roads that are owned and maintained by El Paso County. So the first one here is our paved road system. It's often measured in one of 2 ways, either center line miles, which is just point A to point B, or lane miles, which is more beneficial if you're doing estimates or design work, because you may have 4 lanes, you may have 4 lanes as opposed to 2. So oftentimes, many times you can see here, the county's road system usually just double the center line miles for the lane miles. So you can see in 25 versus 24, we added about 10 miles, 10 center line miles, which is usually just because of development, so new infrastructure that the county has accepted for ownership. And there was no changes to our gravel road system. So really what we've been highlighting and heavy is the county's efforts and our focus on preservation. This is kind of just a graphic description of what you can expect over the life cycle of a paved road, and then the benefits you'd see with proper application of preservation techniques. So that first orange line we see there is the relative condition of a new paved road. And then you can see it falls off and it gets out of the poor, below the poor condition into very poor, which is when a road no longer benefits from preservation and you're in the point now where you need major rehabilitation or reconstruction. However, over the same time period, if you apply concerted and deliberate preservation techniques, you can oftentimes double the life cycle of a road. So for a fraction of the cost, and I'll get into the kind of the overall cost of preservation versus reconstruction. But the longer you keep a road in a good condition, the cheaper it is to maintain and the longer it will last before you ultimately get to a point. Every road will have to be reconstructed at some point. But generally speaking, and this is very general, without any sort of preservation, 20 years is kind of your over under on a paved road. However, if you preserve it, maintain it, and keep it in good condition, 40, 50 years is not unreasonable. Again, very relative. Every road is different. The age of the road, the location of the road, the amount of traffic, it's very dependent, but generally speaking, you can expect maybe double the life of a road if you preserve it properly. So starting in 2025, the county for the first time did a 3D assessment of all our roads. So very general terms, we consulted out and drove every mile, center line and lane mile of our roads, and used a couple different technologies to get a 3D assessment of all of our roads. So laser crack measurement, LiDAR, ground penetrating radar. We did it in 2022, and we used that coupled with the new pavement management software to not only manage, but to also make recommendations and track the progress and the condition of our roads. We collected information again in 2025, and we have thousands of pages of data that we received. At this point, kind of pointless. It doesn't mean a whole lot. It's just a bunch of data sets, data points, but we're using that now, information now that we will then input into our pavement management software and then update the condition, the projections, the recommendations of our pavement infrastructure. This is a comparison, just a side-by-side view of where we were in 2024 versus where we were in 2025. So in 2022 was a big year for us. It was a big year in our efforts towards preservation, towards our 3D assessment. We ditched our old pavement management software and went to a more comprehensive and moldable version option. We also went away from what we used to use to measure the condition of our road, which was called PQI, Pavement Quality Index, and now we use Pavement Condition Index, which is much more widely used, across the industry to measure the health of your road. And it's basically a 0 to 100 scale, 0 being a completely failed road and 100 being a brand new road. And your roads are kind of measured in those categories. So what we're looking for is we want our roads to be in those good to satisfactory, and even fair. The high end of fair is usually a pretty good road. Once you get beyond fair, it costs more and the roads are in a much more serious condition that really preservation is not usually an option much anymore. So our goal year over year is a 1-point increase in our pavement condition index. And you can see we did that between 24 and 25, and our goal is the same in 2026. But ultimately, what I want you to get from this is we want our green and yellow to be more and our pinks and reds to be less. And that's what's happened overall. PCI is a overall metric of roadway infrastructure as a whole. But really what we want to look, it's an overall measurement, but we do look at individual roads and individual conditions. We'd make very location-specific decisions. So while the PCI may increase, we also want to make sure that the proportion of failed roads or very poor roads is also decreasing. This is just a different way to look at the same information. It's just by happenstance, but it is very beneficial to my cause because 2019 was the last year that we did this work before I started at the county. So I just put that in there for relative to show how well we've done since I've been here, so I can take all the credit. And these are just some examples of different preservation types. For those who are familiar, these are really just different iterations of the same types of treatments. They all involve some sort of asphalt or emulsified asphalt. Sometimes they're chips, sometimes they're not. Some of them work better in shaded areas, some work better out on the plains, some work better with older roads or newer roads. It really depends, but we take a very specific geocentric approach to what preservation type we're going to use in a specific type of road. And they all have their relative applications and timeframes and benefits, but coupled with our 3D analytics and our pavement management software, and then really inspections, because even after we put all the information out and it spits out recommendations for our roads, we still go out and inspect every single thing to make sure that the data and that the output is what we expect. There's just some examples, recent examples from last year, so a few different treatment types. And what I found is as long as the road is black, people seem to be pretty happy with what we're doing. This is the very interesting part. Cost of deferred maintenance. For every dollar we spend now, it saves $4 to $10 on future maintenance costs. It was difficult to sell this in 2022, just because the more you spend money on preservation, first off, there's a little bit of confusion. You just paved my road. Why are you back out here? The road, you know, one block over is falling apart. Why aren't you spending money there? And that has historically been the approach of the county. It's worst is first. Not terrible, but it's not the most efficient. We're finally starting to see the benefits of that concerted year-over-year preservation effort. So starting in 2022, now we're 4 years into it. We're really starting to see the cost benefit and savings. So if we spend money now on preservation, slowly over time, we're gonna be able to save up money and spend that savings on roads that don't benefit from preservation. They're gonna cost 5 to 10 times more to reconstruct. So every dollar we spend now on preservation saves 4 to 10 in the future. And really, from what we can tell now, up to 14 times more costly to reconstruct the road than it is to repave it. Yeah, Tom.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
On your preservation program slide that shows miles and the percentage of the miles that are being preserved, it's saying 7.7%.
Talk about this one right here.
Yeah, of the miles. There you go. Right there.
Yeah.
If the average lifetime of a road you said is about 20 years without this, that's not enough to keep up. Are we having a problem even keeping up?
Well, that's per district. So, well, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. It's going to change year over year. So as we preserve the roads, as it builds up over time, we're spending less money on reconstructing the road than we are on preserving it. So it's going to take a little while for those funds to kind of build up and for us to get rid of the backlog of roads that need to be reconstructed. So as you notice in this previous slide, 14 times more expensive. So for every road that we have to pave now, in the future, we could preserve 14 miles of the same road. So over time, the proportion and the percentage of roads that are being preserved is going to go up because the factor of 14 is going to go down on the roads that are being reconstructed. Yeah. That makes sense? Okay. This all makes sense to me. Yeah. So I if you have a question as I'm going, feel free to interrupt. I don't get offended. But really our focus is preserving the roads, keeping them good. So what I find really beneficial about this CAC is the information that you're able to share with your neighbors, and what I would hope that you share. If you get questions, why are they were just out here a few years ago, why are they back out here and so the road is falling apart? This is why we're doing it. It's very intentional. So if we can keep that road in better condition and defer the maintenance and reconstruction of that, we'll be able to get to the failed road a lot quicker. And I mentioned, kind of the improvements that we've been making, not just this year, but over the last couple of years, implementing a new pavement management software, new data collection. The additional funding is an important one because we have about $10 to $12 million from our maintenance allocation that we put towards paving and preservation. That's not enough. We need about $24 million a year if we wanted to keep on this trajectory of a 1 point increase in our PCI. So fortunately, the Board of County Commissioners is allocated on an annual basis enough money to make up that difference. And they just made a permanent budget amendment. So rather than having to go back every year to our commissioners and ask for an additional 10 or $12 million to supplement what we don't have enough money for through PPRTA, they've amended our regular budget by $5 million. So now I just have to go back next year and ask for $7 million. So hopefully we chip away at this. I won't have to go back at all. But then costs will go up and I'll have to go back anyways. And really what we're focusing on in the next couple of years, really this year, is that bottom right corner there is developing a multi-year maintenance plan. Right now, we project out into the future. 5 years is kind of the over-under, but it's not official. We have a contract out right now, not only to put together a 5-year capital program, but also a 5-year maintenance program. So once we get that going, then we'll just maintain that program. And one of the things that may come out of that is maybe a more zoned approach rather than. I think there's a benefit of being equitable in how we distribute our work amongst the 5 different commissioner districts. Hopefully makes everybody slightly happy. It's not always the most efficient way to do it. As the contractor has to move around, if they're up in Monument one day and then a couple weeks later they have to be down in Security Wide Field or out east versus up Cascade, mobilization, transportation costs, fuel, materials, delivery. So if we can maybe come up with a more zoned approach where, zone 1 this year is going to be heavy on preservation, and zone 2 will be working on concrete, zone 3 will be paving, and zone 4 will be rehabilitation. We can get much more value for our dollar when it comes to our contracts. So that's something we're looking at. Nothing's in writing, nothing's in stone yet, but that's something that we're hoping that to improve on our efficiencies. And then, and Tony, you mentioned this is just kind of really probably more beneficial for our commissioners, but I believe everybody lives in different parts of the county here. So if you live in District 5, you probably won't see a whole lot because there's only really one area that's Park Vista that is part of unincorporated El Paso County. So if you're going to talk about actual quantity of work, District 1, District 2, District 4, probably going to see a lot more just because those are heavily unincorporated and or they have a lot of roads that need to be maintained. But we try to be equitable in how we distribute this work. And it's going to change. If you see a lot of paving one year, you may see less preservation and maybe flip-flop the next year. But we really are focused on making sure that everybody sees the value and sees the benefit, immediate benefit from the taxes that they're paying into this program. This is just our process. We got board approval from our commissioners. Our plan right now is to start paving in April. It's all weather dependent. A few years ago, we didn't start till end of May. I guess a silver lining of getting no rain or snow and having record heat, we may be able to start earlier than April this year. I hope not from personal standpoint. I hope we get some more snow. But last year we were done paving in, I think, October. The year before that, we were paving up through Christmas. So it's really weather dependent. But our goal is to start in April this year. And this is just a list of all the different, it's kind of hard to see in the presentation. And I can send this PowerPoint out to Rick, and then Rick, you can share it with the CAC if they are interested in it. This is on the website. So if you go to the Public Works page, all this information, the presentation, the lists, there's an interactive map that's there. And I think I have a report here. Yeah, Public Works there. If you go to our Public Works page, there's an interactive map. Once we get started on construction, you can click on it and find out what project is going on where, what the schedule is, who the contractor is, who the PM is. I didn't give out the PM's number because I like them. I don't want people calling them. If you have a problem, you can call me. The information's on our website. So that is it. Any questions?
Thank you, Josh. Just to clarify my understanding, the pavement condition index is the goal, ignoring fiscal constraints, 100%, or is there diminishing returns with that as the closer you get?
I think practically speaking, 100% is probably nearly impossible. I mean, because that's essentially a brand new road. And I mean, unless you had hundreds of millions of dollars, you're never going to have everything. And even then, you're constrained by availability of contractors and schedules and weather. So I think if we can get into the mid 70s and kind of stay in that mid 70s, I think that is a reasonable and practical goal. So like I said, I would like to be in the green category, wherever that is.
A great presentation, Josh, as always. One thing, in fact, three of us in this group also sit on the mayor's appointed 2C committee, which has a similar overview responsibility only of the city's paving programs. Last week in our 2C meeting, we had an elected official ask about longitudinal joints and how they tend to separate and can be a problem. I know that some DOTs, Colorado has, I think, a new requirement, maybe you're aware of it, which does not require after construction sealing of the joint, longitudinal joint. They do, I think, a joint mastic between the lanes, and they don't leave lanes open overnight. Some states, largely back east, I know, do have both a mandatory adhesive compound that goes diagonal in the joint, and then a longitudinal sealant afterwards to try to prevent exactly what our council member here was rightly growling about. Can you address longitudinal joints, preventive maintenance, and I noticed that among the many preventive maintenance things you're doing here, that was not one of them, and it did come up in the city discussion we just had last week from an elected official.
I don't have a specific answer for you, David. I know we follow whatever the Pikes Peak regional asphalt spec says. I know there's a lot of correlation between that and what CDOT requires. I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head. If that is an issue that is not already being accounted for in either our specs or in the application of those specs.
City
then-
acknowledges not.
Okay, definitely something I'll pass on down to our construct, just because it's not in the Pikes Peak paving spec doesn't mean that we can't incorporate some version of that into our own requirements. I'll pass that on down to our construction crew and ask them if that's something that they viewed as an issue and if they have any ideas on how to address that.
I know I mentioned that PennDOT, Pennsylvania DOT, I'm pretty well acquainted with those folks, do a mandatory 4-inch hot seam within a couple of weeks or months before the next winter hits on all the seams, all the hot mix paving jobs. And that seems to have addressed a lot of the problems. We don't do that here, and I think and I was oblivious till a council member brought it up. So it's an issue with this person. This individual, I think, is also on the PPACG board. And if you haven't, you probably will soon hear from an individual.
Well, I look forward to it. Well, I was oblivious until you brought it up too. So
thank you.
But I'll pass that down.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that truck that you showed in there that does the data collections to get your OCIs, is that the same one the city uses? You guys just capitalized on that contract?
I don't know what the city uses. That's an image from last year, from 2022. I'm not sure if they use that truck. I guess there's some version of the same, but I don't know for sure.
That's okay. I would oversee that truck when the city had it out, and the hard drive or the memory in the computer in that thing is like multiple terabytes of data that they collect. The sonar, the vibrations, the radar, the all kinds of stuff. That's a massive amount of data that's in there.
Yeah, it's very specialized, and we looked into, well, what if we bought our own? And while we can maybe afford the upfront cost, no one knows how to use the equipment, so that wouldn't work.
That's why they have contractors, right?
Yeah, that's why the contractor's correct.
All right. Any questions for Josh? Good presentation. Thank you for doing it. Very informative. All right, last section and our last comment is 7F quarterly reports from member governments. They're in your packet. These, I remind some of the newer members again, these are real nice to kind of hang on to when you talk to constituents and people ask questions. It's a nice reference document to have available. All right. Admin, report of recent board actions. It's in your packet. Any comments or questions? Rick, on that? Not seeing any online or otherwise. Next item is the PPRTA 26 annual report to the citizens. Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As usual, we have a CAC member who is eagle eye and better at proofreading than I am, and found 4 typos in what was submitted by 3 by the city of Colorado Springs and 1 by Manitou Springs. We've fixed those in the version that I think Jared and Tom are going to scroll. Tom, if you could scroll to page 21. for Kathy. Thank you for your review. We fixed the 4 that you brought to our attention. The one on page 21, page 26, and the 2 on page 46.
So Rick, I apologize. I think this version is pre-Kathy.
Is pre,
So
okay,
we can point out all of this stuff now.
okay. So Kathy, I've seen a version that fixes all 4 of the typos that you found, so that'll be the version that we put in the board agenda packet. The other item was slightly moving the dot for Rama's capital project in the PPRTA 3 maps. So because we learned from Cindy, who was on vacation when we were putting together the maps, that the Brush Dump Road capital project is north and east of town. So we fixed that in the final version. They'll go in the board packet. Are there any other typos or errors that the CAC members have found?
Good job, Kathy. Thank you. Right, no other comments or questions? Don't see anybody online or in here. So we'll go on to item agenda number 9. Any topics that we'll discuss?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we need a motion and a second.
Oh, sorry.
I've missed one other error, and that was Manitou's 3 projects. One was misidentified. Number 19 was misidentified as not having started, but the Manitou's street system capital project number 19 is in design. So that has also been fixed in the final version. That'll go to the board. So if we could have a motion and second to recommend have a positive recommendation of the board for approval at their meeting next week.
Sorry, I overlooked the recommend part. So do I have a motion to approve the amended annual report to present to the board?
Larry Tobias, move to approve as presented with corrections.
I have a second.
Kathy Heisey.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. All right, thank you. All right, number 9, agenda topics for next meeting. Anybody got any burning things? Okay, communication. Gail, did you say you had something you wanted?
I just did it while we were talking about powers
Okay.
earlier.
Any other communications by anyone? All right, very good. Then I have a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you all for your time.